So let's go ahead now and talk about integers. So the definition of an integer are numbers that are whole numbers, no fractions or decimals, but they can be positive or negative. So a lot of times we use a number line when we talk about integers. And of course our number line in the middle here, we're going to have 0. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's going to go on forever. And then it goes on forever in the negative direction as well. So again, no decimals, no fractions, just these whole numbers. Those are integers. So a lot of times you'll be asked to plot numbers on a number line. And so you just remember 0's in the middle, and then it goes out 1, 2, 3, 4 that direction, and then negative 1, 2, 3, 4 that direction. And when you plot them, you'll be able to see what numbers are greater than other ones. So if you had, let's say, 1 and negative 3, since negative 3 is to the left of 1, then it is less than 1. And then 1 is greater than negative 3 because 1 is to the right of negative 3. So negative numbers are always going to be less than whole numbers, and as negative numbers go to the left, they get smaller in value. So if you had, let's say, negative 9 and negative 4, negative 4 is going to be greater than negative 9. So negative 9 is less than negative 4. And you can see that because negative 9 is going to be way out here on the number line. And so that is to the left of negative 4, so it's less than negative 4. All right, so when working with negative numbers, you're going to have these expressions where you'll be asked to find the opposite of some number. And that just means that you multiply whatever your number is by a negative 1. So if you're asked to find the opposite of negative 7, you're going to take negative 7 times by negative 1, and so that's going to be 7. Or the opposite of 7, you're going to take that, times it by negative 1, and so you're going to be left with negative 7. An easier way to think about this, though, is just by adding a line to your expression. So if you're given negative 7 and you want to find the opposite of that, you're just going to add a line to that operator in front, so you're going to have positive 7 is going to be the opposite of that. If you're starting with a positive 7 and you're asked to find the opposite, then you just add a line before it, so negative 7 is opposite of that. Sometimes it's easier to think about it that way. And then another thing you'll be asked to find is the absolute value. And the absolute value is your distance from 0. So we've got 4 here and we've got -4 here. If you're asked to find the absolute value of 4, you're being asked to find this distance here. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. If you're asked to find the absolute value of -4, they're asking for that distance there. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's written as the absolute value of -4. So absolute value are these little straight lines here. And so that's going to be the distance away from 0, which is going to be 4. So since your absolute value is a distance, it's always going to be positive. All right, so let's go ahead now and learn how to add, subtract, and divide these things. So if you have a -4 plus 5, one way you can do this is to just visualize it. So draw your number line. So we're starting at -4. So we're going to start here, and we want to add 5 to it. So when we're adding, we move right. If we're subtracting, we're going to move left. So starting at -4, adding 5. So we're going to move to the right 5. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's going to be 1. So that's going to equal to 1. All right, so if we had there we go. Let's say we have an expression 3 minus 6. So we're going to go ahead and start at 3, 1, 2, 3, and then move to the left 6 because we're subtracting. So move to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So -3 is going to be our answer to that. Now, another thing that you can do with adding and subtracting, if we take a look at this example here, we can go ahead and reorder these. So -4 plus 5 is going to be the same as 5 minus 4. So you group these up, so -4 and +5, and then you can just switch places with them. And so 5 minus 4 is equal to 1. One thing that I like to do with negative expressions or with subtraction expressions is to change that subtraction to a positive. So we're going to have 3 minus 6, which can also be rewritten as 3 plus a -6. And so if you're adding a +3 to a -6, then you're going to move to the right 3, so then you're just going to be at -3. Some of these tricks you'll pick up over time the more that you do it. Until you can kind of visualize this number line in your head and how it's working, go ahead and just draw it out every single time that you do one of these expressions, and it'll be able to help you out a lot more than you just trying to do it in your brain. Eventually you will be able to do it in your brain. It just takes time, it takes practice. So just draw out your number line, move left and right, and you'll get it right every time. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some multiplication and division. The biggest thing you need to be aware of is that 2 negatives equal a positive, but 1 negative equals a negative. And that goes for division as well. So if you had like a negative and a positive, your whole answer is going to end up being negative. If you have a negative over a negative, you've got 1, 2 negatives, so this whole thing is going to end up being positive. And then this could be reversed as well, and it would still be negative, so you could have a positive over a negative, and it's going to be negative. So again, if you have an odd number of negatives, it's going to be negative. If you have an even number of negatives, you're going to end up with a positive expression. So if we have a -2 times a -4, we've got 1, 2 negatives, so our whole thing's going to end up being positive. 2 times 4 is 8, so your answer is going to be 8. But if we have a -2 times a 4, we only have 1 negative, which is an odd number, so we're going to end up with a negative number. 2 times 4 is 8, so -8 is going to be our answer there. And then if we have division, we can do -4 all over -2. We've got 1, 2 negatives, so our whole answer is going to be positive. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so our answer is going to be 2. But if we have a -4 over 2, we only have 1 negative, which is an odd number, so we're going to end up with a negative answer. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so -2 is going to be your answer there. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the coordinate plane really fast. Just do a brief overview and introduction to the coordinate plane. So your coordinate plane is set up by 2 axes crossing at 90 degrees. And this is going to be your x-axis. This is going to be your y-axis. To the right is positive. To the left is negative. Up is positive. Down is negative. And these are all built up of integers. And so you can plot points on this. So points are set up, so x, comma, y. And you can remember that because x comes before y in the alphabet. So if you had a point, let's say 2, 4, that you needed to plot on this axis, on this coordinate plane, you're going to go 2 in the x direction and positive 4 in the y direction. So positive 2, so 1, 2, and then positive 4 in the y direction. 2, 3, 4. And then wherever these lines intersect, that's where you plot your point. So again, over 2, up 4. And again, you can remember that because x, comma, y. X comes before y in the alphabet. So on your x, you go first and then next to your y. Another way you can remember that is remembering that planes have to gain speed before they take off. So you've got to move over horizontally before you can go up in the air. Just a simple trick to remember that as well. I always just like to think about an X and Y though. X comes before Y. X is your horizontal axis. Y is your vertical axis. So if you had a point, let's say -3, -2. So -3 on the X. So 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to go -2 in the Y. So 1, 2. Where those meet, that's going to be your point there. It is important to point out that these quadrants on your coordinate plane are numbered. So that's 1, 2, 3, and quadrant 4. For quadrant 1, you're going to have a positive X, positive Y. Quadrant 2, you're going to have positive X, negative Y. To be in quadrant 3, you're going to be negative, negative. And for quadrant 4, negative, positive. So again, start with 1, go clockwise. And that's just a quick intro to your coordinate plane and a quick tutorial on, again, this has been variables, expressions, and integers. If you do need additional information or help, head over to our homework help page and we'll be able to answer questions for you there. Or if you want to sit down and go through one of these together, head over to our tutoring page and we'll be able to set up an appointment with you there.